Hi, very good. I am Ajay, Ramasubramaniam, founder and starter. Warm welcome this launch event of AIM iLEAP. There's a little bit of a change in the schedule or the agenda. We were expecting to have Mr. Ramanan do the honor of the keynote, but he's a little bit late, so I'm going to start talk and hand over back to the team at Atal Innovation Mission. So, like I said, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Startup Réseau. At Startup Réseau, we essentially run different types of programs for creating and enabling ecosystem for startups. Startups are at the core of what we do, hence the name Startup Réseau. Réseau being a French word for network. The four networks or the four pillars around which our business is built. The first one is enterprise or large corporates. The second one is governments. The third one is funding stroke finance. And the fourth one is services stroke advisory. We also have in this session we've been working together for a fairly long time, and Startup Réseau has its genesis going back to mid-late 2019. And since then, we are running different kinds of programs which basically create the enabling fabric for startups to acquire customers, which is enterprises, go after new markets, which enables them to become global companies. And the third one is creating that network or the ecosystem which enables them to get access to investors on an ongoing basis through different programs that we operate. I would like to thank the team at Atal Innovation Mission, Ishita and Anish, who were the first point of contacts for us to start thinking and co-creating this entire initiative, which we'll be talking about later during the day. But we are truly excited to kind of collaborate with Atal Innovation Mission on this endeavor. And we truly believe that startups which are a part of, and it's a mammoth, close to 2,000 startups that are a part of the broader AIM network. And over the next couple of years, I think there's this lot of outcome that we'll be jointly working with the Atal Innovation Mission team to enable these companies to access markets, access customers, access funding. So thank you for this wonderful opportunity to join hands and build something for the incubator ecosystem, as well as startups which are a part of these incubators. I'll hand it over back to you, Anish.
Hi, Ajay. Yeah. So we're just waiting for Mr. Ramanan.
I think I can see him there.
Yeah, he's in. Yeah. Yep.
Hi. Sorry for the delay. Just hopping from one meeting to another. My apologies.
It's over to you, sir, for making the welcome address and the keynote.
Okay, great. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody who has logged on to the call. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for joining, and my apologies for the slight delay in starting the proceedings. My name is Ramanan. I'm the Mission Director of Atal Innovation Mission. I first and foremost hope that all of you who have logged onto the call are hale and healthy and taking the necessary precautions of this COVID-19 crisis demands from your local health authorities, from your local institution, or from the local government. It is indeed a pleasure and a privilege for me to be able to once again join with you all in announcing a key relationship, a key partnership that we are starting off today, and a key initiative that Atal Innovation Mission is embarking upon. And all of our initiatives at Atal Innovation Mission, as all of you may be aware, is based upon very strong collaborative partnerships that we have been executing with the private sector, with organizations who have a similar intent. And that is to be able to create and promote an ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship across the length and breadth of our country. We are all very keen that India enjoys the fruits of the demographic dividend that we tout all over the world and which we are very proud of. We are a country with 1.3 billion people, but more than 65% of our country is under 35 years old. And we have this demographic dividend and this youthful energy that is the envy of many a country. But how do we leverage this demographic dividend and ensure that we empower them, energize them, give them the necessary tools, technologies, processes, and support to be able to create a very vibrant ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship that can bring great benefit to the nation, and not only to our nation, but to the rest of the world. And that's why the Atal Innovation Mission has been launched in 2016 by the Honorable Prime Minister under the auspices of the NITI Aayog, the National Institution for Transforming India. And the objective is very plain and simple. One, create a culture of innovation that permeates throughout the length and breadth of our country, especially our young school students graduating from schools, entering into universities, students from universities graduating from the universities and entering into the industry. How do we ensure that we are able to galvanize and catalyze the creation of new job creators in our country? As the Honorable Prime Minister has said, we want to create a nation of job creators, not just job seekers. And therefore, it is imperative upon us to be able to support them at the various stages of creating a problem-solving, innovative mindset, and thereafter being able to use that innovative mindset that they have acquired to be able to create startups and to be able to create entrepreneurial organizations. And therefore, the Atal Innovation Mission has launched thousands of Atal Tinkering Labs at the school level, as many of you may be aware, with more than 7,000 Atal Tinkering Labs established across 680 districts of our country, with more than 3.5 million young students from grade 6 to grade 12 being exposed to tinkering technologies through do-it-yourself kits. These are in the areas of 3D printing, robotics, IoT devices, miniaturized electronics, and now increasingly we'll be adding new technologies like artificial intelligence, do-it-yourself kits, or AR, VR do-it-yourself kits, to be able to tinker with, play with, in an atmosphere of fun and learning, not burdened by rote learning, not burdened by marks that you have to secure, but in an atmosphere of pure joy, of creativity and innovation. And we have today more than 3.5 million students who are being exposed to these technologies. But when they go into the universities, it is very important for them to be able to sustain the spirit of innovation that they have acquired and which they have imbibed. And therefore, we are creating world-class incubators to create world-class startups. And today, the Atal Innovation Mission has operationalized more than 68 incubators across the country in the last 3 years. And out of these incubators have sprung 1,916 startups. But more heartening news in that is that 575 of them are women-led startups. So this is almost a 33% of the startups that are coming out of the Atal Innovation Mission are women-led startups. And that's a great leap from the 13% average women entrepreneurship that we are still having in our country. Hopefully, the Atal Innovation Mission and other GOI initiatives like the DST incubators, DBT incubators, and other incubators will create this transformation in being able to leverage our women into entrepreneurial organizations and to be able to leverage their capabilities. Now, at the same time, we are also ensuring that the benefits of innovation reaches the rural masses, the tier 2, tier 3 cities, and the rural landscape of our country. And that is very important. If the Honorable Prime Minister's Atmanirbhar Bharat call, clarion call, said that one of the important pillars of our growth is going to be infrastructure. And we need smart villages, smart districts, smart cities, smart renewable energy implementations, and so on. After all, we are a country of about 650,000 villages. We have more than 4,000 small towns and cities. We have only 8 tier 1 cities. We have 715 districts, out of which 115 are aspirational districts, which are at the bottom of the pyramid. And therefore, while we enjoy this demographic dividend, this fast-growing economy of 6 to 8%, which again is something envious that many other countries don't have, and we have a technology landscape which is changing so rapidly because it is becoming affordable, accessible, available, and advanced, we also have these challenges of a 22% below the poverty line number. We are 44% of our country agri-economy base, and we need to ensure that we create thousands of hubs of innovation and job creation so that the infrastructure across the country becomes uniform and enables our people to find solutions, local hubs of innovation, local hubs of job creation. And therefore, the Atal Innovation Mission has not only ensured that we are setting up tinkering labs, community innovation centers, incubators, and we have launched several challenges called Arise Challenges and Atal New India Challenges. But we try to back it up with partnerships which can make and realize all the objectives that Atal Innovation Mission is doing. And that is, how do you build capacity, for example, in the incubators? A world-class incubator doesn't become one without world-class capabilities, world-class managers. And therefore, we launched a program called the AIM iCREST program in partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and with the Vadvani Foundation. And this has been an extraordinarily successful program where we have been training all the CEOs of Atal Incubation System and the Atal Incubation Centers to be able to understand what it takes to set up a world-class incubator. And then there is also a program launched by iCREST to train startups so that they can become world-class startups. Now, while we build this capacity and we build all of these capabilities within our incubators so that they can become successful, at the same time, it is very important for our startups to be able to showcase their products, their services, their capabilities to the rest of the world. Because in a startup life cycle, it's very important to see that they get the necessary venture capital support, funding support, mentoring support, HR support, business planning strategy support by qualified people who are out there in the industry. And that is why this particular relationship that we are embarking upon with startup Réseau, and I would like to thank Ajay Subramaniam for enabling this and making this happen. This relationship is going to launch a program called iLEAP. iLEAP stands for Innovative Leadership for Entrepreneurs to be able to accelerate their profitable growth. Now, how does that happen? That happens only when they are able to showcase to the rest of the world their capabilities, their products. They're also able to learn from others the expectations that maybe a venture capitalist has, maybe a corporate organization has, the rest of the world and the customer has in terms of their products and the relevance of their products, their services, or their solution. So this becomes a very important platform for all of us in the Atal Innovation Mission, all the beneficiaries of Atal Innovation Mission, and that includes not just the startups from the Atal incubators, but also the startups which are resulting from our Atal Community Innovation Centers, and the startups that are resulting from our Arise winners, the Applied Research and Innovation for Small Enterprise winners, challenge winners, and the ANIC winners, the Atal New India Challenge winners. All of these are budding startups who are going to make a difference and are going to make an impact upon the rest of the country. And that's our hope. That's our hope that India will become one of the fastest growing startup nations of the world. We already are on that path with more than 50,000 startups in our country, more than 400 incubators, more than 34 unicorns, and the fact that 11 unicorns have been born just in the COVID-19 year has been a tremendous boost of excitement as well as pride for India. So we are capable of many more things, and I think many of these initiatives will find the light of the day only when we have partners like Startup Réseau and all the others who have logged on today in today's call. And I want to thank Mr. Sanjay Mehta, founder and partner at 100x VC. They already had a fantastic session with our incubators some time ago through Nina Karpe. And I'm sure this is going to add momentum through the panel discussion we are going to have today. Mr. Avnish Sabharwal, Managing Director in Accenture Ventures and Open Innovation. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Mr. Arvind Ronta, Head of Products of India and South Asia Visa. All of these people are spending their personal time, effort, and I thank you and I'm so grateful to you for joining today and you're going to be sharing your views on the expectations that you have from startups. But before that, I would like to ask Ajay Subramaniam to share a little more on this particular relationship that we are embarking and the initiative iLEAP. The word iLEAP is suggestive, as it rightfully should. The ability for startups to leap, to pole vault into success. We have the term leapfrog into success. I would suggest you should pole vault into success, and pole vaulting is possible through these partnerships and relationships and being able to leverage it to the best of your ability. So with that, I want to pass it on to Ajay for sharing his thoughts on this particular partnership with Atal Innovation Mission and where it would lead to. And then we would be happy to have views from the panel on this particular subject going forward. Over to you, Ajay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramanan. I mean, that was wonderful, and I think inspirational not just for the incubator managers and CEOs from Atal Innovation Mission backed incubators have logged in. I think for them to know the different programs that are being put together by the team at AIM, I think it is pretty much phenomenal in terms of not just creating the enabling infrastructure for building those incubators, but also providing those services which are probably super critical for startups to go to the next phase of growth, whether it's accessing markets, customers, investors, access to business leaders as mentors. So kudos to all the work that goes behind the scene and the logistics and operations of kind of pulling all of this through. So coming to AIM iLEAP, which is innovative leadership for agility and profitability, with Ishita and Anish from the AIM team. Even if Ishita can join me on this to give an overview of this program and why we are doing this and what we expect as an outcome. Ishita, it would be great if you can join me on this. I can probably set a little bit of context, but if you can also add to it, that would be wonderful. So this goes back to a few months, and the program itself has probably gone through a little bit of back and forth iterations, and what are the areas in which value can actually be delivered to 1900 startups across 68 incubators. That's kind of fairly well spread out. Sitting in Mumbai or the comforts of Bangalore, Delhi, you always have access to, whether it is corporates, you have solid entrepreneurs, you have investors popping in and out of incubators, keeping aside COVID times. But I think when it comes to that startups always face is access. That we are not having good and building great companies, but the challenge remains that they do not have access to a lot of resources, which sitting in a Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, we take for granted. And I think that is where I think this entire phase of COVID and the use of digital has kind of really shrunk the world in several ways. And I think enabling that kind of access to customers, access to markets, access to, and from the side, look at corporates or investors, the discovery of startups and the discovery of entrepreneurs in tier 2, tier 3 cities has also become all more seamless. And that is where this program has solid potential in terms of striking a balance between the provider, which is the incubator in this case, and probably the benefactor, which is both startups as well as whether it is corporates, investors, whichever hat you're wearing and seeing. So the broader agenda or objective of this program, and Nishita, just jump in how can we create interventions in a systematic kind of a manner over the next couple of years to kind of help startups, either when you look at it from a standpoint of industry, or if you're looking at it from a standpoint of theme, to kind of be coached. Once you become an entrepreneur, I think every day people are just pitching. People are pitching to get their co-founders. People are pitching to their first customer. People are pitching to investors. But for a lot of startups, like I said earlier, I think even access to someone to validate that pitch, tweak those pitches, getting them in front of the appropriate kind of an audience, I think that continues to remain a challenge. So through iLEAP, what we are aiming to do is that on a bi-monthly basis, host, organize thematic pitching days or demo days, as you may call it, wherein for a week between the Atal Innovation Mission team and Startup Réseau, we will kind of identify, select a handful of companies depending on which theme we are going to go forward with, and coach them from a standpoint of pitching to potential customers, potential partners, potential investors, and host qualified demo days where we bring in a good number of corporates and investors to help discover good companies which are out there within the broader Atal Innovation Mission network. Ishita, if you want to add to that, I can continue, but I want you also to chip in here.
Ajay, having a bad.
Okay, fine. I'll just continue this. So
I can add,
so
Ajay,
yes,
if
please.
you want, I can add a
Yes,
little bit
please.
on this.
Yes, please.
Of course, the idea here is startup Réseau is having a global network of enterprises, capital market services for tech startups. And how do we work together to enable startups bridge the various valleys of death, as they call in their startup life cycle? And these are primarily because of the lack of mentoring support, the venture capital support, uh, the uh, the HR strategy and the business strategy support that is often required when you want to up. In fact, yesterday we had a wonderful discussion with Dr. Gopal Krishnan as well as Naru Narayanan, who have come up with a book called Wisdom for Startups from Grown-ups. And I would urge that everyone actually tunes into that particular link and sees this that particular interview, because it was filled with nuggets of wisdom of what goes into a startup life cycle today in terms of various stages that they are in, to be able to support them, to be able to scale them, and to be able to make them successful. And that is what that happens only when people become intimate with what the startup is doing, as well as they're able to give feedback that these are areas that you need to improve. And we need to support them in making the right pitches, the right demonstrations. Sometimes a great idea does not find expression because you have not focused on some of the right things that people want to know about. Many people don't want to know about your life history. They want to know about your startup, what exactly your startup is going to bring, what is the value that you're bringing. And in the first few minutes of your pitch are very vital in capturing the interest of the potential investor or the potential venture capital person who is willing to invest in your network, in your solution. So these are some of the things that not only will we be organizing today, over the next several months along with Startup Réseau, but we will then also be following it up with some mentoring and industry connects to help them course through that innovation journey. Yeah, go ahead, Ajay.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So one of the things that initially we were looking at is just from an enterprise standpoint, and because that has been a strong suit of the work that we do, bringing in enterprises from not just India but to uh, to that enterprise collaboration. The sort of the program itself, we evolved that before we take them to the right kind of, or the customers or the investors, a lot of them they require serious handholding. Even when you look at from a standpoint of pitch coaching, narrating the story in a right way, which kind of strikes a chord or strikes a balance. So definitely validation mentorship is critical, and that is something that we would jointly spend time on. But over the next couple of years, the plan is over the next 10 to 12 demo days or pitch days that we might be hosting, getting in at least 100 corporates to get exposed to different startups that are a part of the broader AIM network. But at the same time, also kind of identifying ways and means in which we are selecting the right kind of companies and making them the kind of poster childs of startups that are getting spun out of the different Atal Innovation Mission programs, and that probably will inspire a lot many more kind of founders to embark in the journey of entrepreneurship. So really excited about building this jointly. And like I said, there's phenomenal number of companies which are I mean, just to take an example, currently we are running a program called Startup Bridge Canada, which is for taking Indian startups to Canada on a 6-week market access program. This is the last week that we are operating, and the number of companies that applied outside of the Delhi, Bangalore, and Mumbai's of the world, out of the 35 companies that are a part of the cohort, at least 10 startups are from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. And these are all companies which are profitable, they have been around for a while, and they're doing well for themselves. Just that not too many people have heard of them because they're not featured as prominently, or probably they're not kind of tom-tomming themselves. But that doesn't mean they're not building great products, or it's not that only venture funding is a sexy thing out there. You can build a profitable business even without venture funding, as long as you're getting exposed to right kind of markets, you're getting exposed to right kind of customers. So that is the whole aim and objective of this program: identifying good solid companies and bringing them onto a platform which helps them to kind of take the leap forward. So I'll just stop at that. Yeah.
Excellent, Ajay. And indeed, we are looking forward very, very excitedly towards this partnership. But we have today three people, very distinguished people who have agreed to join this particular discussion. And I think there is so much to learn from them because they are so much involved in the startup world. And I am delighted that we have Sanjay Mehta, Avnish Sabharwal, and Arvind Ronta, who are part of this meeting today. Let me start off with Sanjay. Sanjay, are you there?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So Sanjay, 100x BC has been a pioneering organization investing in startups, and I think you have already invested in more than 100 startups as a full-time angel investor. As an investor, what ails early stage startups from your perspective when it comes to an exposure related to pitching to customers? And what do you think, this partnership is all about now, as you must have heard what we are trying to do. So how important is such an initiative as the iLEAP initiative to be able to give rise to startups that become investable and which have a path to grow?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Ramanan. Thanks for the kind words, and thanks, Ajay, for having me here. So the way I see across is two set of startups typically which are there. One is B2B and another is B2C startup.
Your
And
video is not on, Sanjay, or is it because you have a bandwidth issue?
no, my video is on. I don't know if you guys are not able to see it. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we're able to hear you, but I'm not able to see you for some reason. Ishita, are you able to see, or the others are able to see?
No, we can't see him.
Yeah, no, none of us are able to see you. But please go
My
ahead.
video-
Yeah, yeah.
I just stopped it, so makes a better. Idea here is, from a B2B and B2C perspective, both are a very different approach. When you go in a B2B market model, the universe is very well defined in terms of what kind of customer, what is the reach, and where do you want to go about it. When you do B2C, it's basically the market is wide open and huge amount of capital is required to acquire across. In B2B side of it, most of the engagements are done across, and sustainability is there. Uh, Startups can grow across on the revenue side. In the B2C, if you are to achieve scale, I believe large amount of capital initially would be required to build that scale and generate that revenue. But from this partnership, I'm sure we will see lots of benefit coming across to startup in terms of customer access, in terms of access to how the and typical blueprint which is required across, so that startups can avoid those costly mistakes which typically can cost them, one in terms of capital and second time. So idea here is time is very important. Startups is equal to growth. That's what we believe. It's so in typical traditional businesses have got time, whereas startup needs to have that accelerated growth. So I believe this partnership will help them build this accelerated growth.
Excellent. Ajay, you want to have?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll go with one with Avnish, who I've known for a few years now, when they commenced their whole open innovation journey, and we have had conversations over the years. So Avnish, I think I think the of open innovation has undergone a big change. I think on one hand you have corporates who create programs for themselves, but on the other side, if you look at strategy consulting firm like Accenture, there are customers whom different open innovation programs, and different customers, different industries having different maturity when it comes to the broader innovation cycle that they are in. How have you been working with startups overall and bridging the innovation needs of your customers?
Yeah, thanks, Ajay and Mr. Ramanan, and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for having me here. So I think it's a good question, Ajay, because the open innovation model and the journeys which corporates have been taken has evolved over time. So if you look at the earlier model, it started off with something like corporates going for what I call a startup tourism, right? They will go to all the innovation hotspots around the world. Common ones would be obviously the Valley and Israel. They are the two favorites, but now many have come up where organizations, send their executives to go and have a look at what's the latest, the most sexy innovation which is happening. They come back quite enlightened, but not able to actually translate that into value for their organization. So the second one is doing hackathons. I think that's another very popular instrument which corporates use, and they come up with some sort of a challenge, and then they invite the startups and the developer community to come and look and basically work on those challenges. Corporate accelerators have been in vogue for some time now, incubators, but more accelerators, because I think a lot of corporates now, they started off working with early stage startups, have evolved now to working with more growth stage startups, because they realize that I think when you are looking into embedding a startup in your organization systems and processes, you need more robust technology stack and even more mature teams. So they have started working on more growth stage companies now in terms of how OI is evolved. And then you look into IP creation as well, joint IP creation, and then how do you divide that IP between yourself? And then, once you have done these proof of concepts, a lot of organizations are now looking at, okay, well, can we actually scale some of them? Because that's where real value creation happens, right? And deployment and scale of startup technology, and not just a POC. But the more evolved OI programs are now going towards joint go-to-market, acqui-hires, corporate venture capital, and even acquisitions, right? So there is no one particular path or journey which corporate, is taking as far as their collaboration with startups are concerned. I'm happy to tell that about 80% of the Fortune 500 companies are already working or investing in startups. So, that is a significant jump from, Ajay, when you were talking about, right, 6 years back when we started the program in Accenture Ventures, and that's probably one of the first corporates to do that. So now the maturity of the client and the corporate has also evolved in terms of working with the startup. They are much more comfortable, and some of the processes are in place now in terms of how do you actually work with a more small, agile, but a disruptive partner than a big organization like Accenture. So as far as Accenture is concerned, our focus, as Sanjay was talking about, there are two kinds of startups. We only work with one, which is B2B, and even in B2B, we work with only deep tech, right? So our focus is to work with deep tech startups. And when you say, okay, well, what's your definition of deep tech? The definition of deep tech is that the technology should have been incubated, maybe in an incubator over several years, and the technology has is protected by IP and patents, right? So that's the kind of startups we like to work with, growth stage startups, definitely. And over time, we have basically taken our startups and embedded them into multiple digital transformation projects, which we are running for Fortune 500 clients and big Indian corporates as well. So for us, it's like a reverse innovation program, right? We are already engaged with our major clients doing digital transformation. And there we identify what are the point solutions which we can get from deep tech startups, which we can embed into the digital transformation blueprint rather than Accenture building them in-house. So that way it ensures the validation of the use case as well as funding. Both are very important, as you know, when we are talking about working with startups. We also use early stage startups for ideation. So a lot of our clients, their industries and businesses are getting disrupted. So we would like to get access to early stage startups and get ideas from them, the ones which are actually disrupting different industries, and also blurring the boundaries of industry. So we use those startups for ideation for our clients as well. In addition to that, we do corporate venture capital as well. We do strategic minority investments. Our ticket size is about $1 million to $10 million. We have invested in about 45 startups till now. And the last thing I would like to say is that when a startup becomes very critical to us, we do acquire them as well. Last year, we ended up acquiring one of our data and AI startup based in Ahmedabad. So that in nutshell, Ajay is the a long answer to your question in terms of what corporates are doing and what Accenture is doing in the whole open innovation space and how the open innovation space itself has evolved over time.
Thank you. I think that was not broad, but it was very detailed in terms of even when they look at and sometimes kind of pigeonhole when it comes to participation. But when you cover that broad spectrum, I mean, right from we are at a nascent stage, some leading edge or cutting edge kind of technology, to where it in investments, I think really lots of corporate like Accenture to engage with startups. So thank you for that. Mr. Ramanan, over to you. Next question.
Thanks. I think, Avnish, you gave a very comprehensive view of how you are looking at deep tech startups and how from a corporate angle, you are looking at state-of-the-art technology, which is going to make a difference. Taking from there, I would like to ask Arvind. Arvind, you are heading products in India as well as South Asia. You are seeing this tremendous boom of startups from India, but it also visible, to you is also visible the startups from other countries in the South Asian market. One is, I'd like you to share a little bit on what you see as, is there a difference between the type of startups that are coming up from India as well as the others which are coming from outside? And the second important question is, you are part of a very large financial management organization, one of the largest financial management organizations in the world. And large organizations, corporate organizations, I also come from the corporate sector, have a tendency of believing that they can do everything by themselves. So, why do I go to startups? I have such a large number of people, very talented people, very innovative people. The not invented here syndrome sometimes badly affects large corporates. Do you feel that that is changing? From a visa point of view, are you looking at the corporates looking at how do you pair with startups, or how do you encourage startups in their journey? And what is the sort of role that you see that a large corporate like yours can play in the Indian startup ecosystem?
Thank you. Thanks for the question and thanks for the invite. So to your first question, I think it's an important question. How is our fintechs different than other fintechs in other markets? So I think the three ways to look at that and answer that question. One is the scale of challenge and opportunity in India is massive. It's second to none. It's comparable to China maybe, but the positive side in how India plays versus other markets is not only its massive opportunity, but there's these principles of secular democracy and openness, which allows anyone to participate, which is really positive for India. So from a scale of challenge that Indian fintechs face, I think it's massive. It's also challenging and opportunistic. From a talent pool perspective, I think Indian fintechs are better placed. We have the best talent in the world. That's never been a problem. The last piece, which was generally a problem, was capital access. And I think you mentioned it, sir, yourself. And I think in the last, if you look at, I think in the last 4.5 years, India has seen inflow of $10 billion in the fintech space. That's massive. So the capital access, which used to be a problem, is not a problem anymore. And in terms of innovativeness, in terms of resourcefulness, I think, which is jugaad, with a lot of Indian fintechs have that so easily. I think it's just amazing how we pull off, despite a lot of challenges, and how, India is a very, very unique nation. I mean, we have every 20 kilometers, we have a new language, so to speak, right? So the diversity makes it very difficult to operate a business at scale. And a lot of these fintechs have figured out that bit. And if they can do it in India, they can easily take those models elsewhere. And we've seen that story played. And when we invest in companies, and we have invested in companies in India, minority stakes we have in some of the payment companies in India, we have seen their models, not just from an India lens, but also that they can be taken globally. And I think it's a very compelling story of, if you can deliver in India at a scale at which it demands, you can easily win other markets as well. To answer your second question on absolutely, I mean, you're right. Most corporates have a do it myself mentality. I think it's changing. I think it's changing. And I'll give you example of us as a firm at Visa. We're a huge company, but we have a very different take by markets. So like in India, we have designed fit for purpose products for India. So we don't push our global products into India as a as we know that India is such a heterogeneous market, such a diverse market that you can't take a product out of US and bolt it into India. It just won't succeed. So we have invested in building products bottom up, and those products that we are building is not ourselves. We have roped in local fintechs out of Bangalore, out of Mumbai, who are actually designing those products with us and actually developing those products. And in some cases, the IP stays with them, and we leverage their talent and IP to distribute the scale at which we operate those products across India. And I think that's been a very positive story because it allows us to work with Indian fintechs and who are innovative and building all these beautiful products and solutions. And in exchange, these fintechs are able to leverage our scale. So they don't have to go bank by bank. Like Visa has partnership with all major banks, not only in India, but globally. So they get access to the world stage. And we have programs from Visa Ready, Visa Accelerator Program, Visa Everywhere Initiative. These are a lot of these outreach and accelerator programs designed to harvest and pull in these fintechs so they can participate with us. And I think at the opening address you mentioned about iLEAP, I was making a note. I think it's such an important initiative because most of the startups are always looking for what is that pole vault for them, like what is that pole position for them to go to the next level. And I think more and more, if we can put our Indian fintechs on the global stage, they'll do superbly well. Like I think some of these fintechs in India have really wrestled with most toughest market problems. And if there is a product market fit, there is of course extension of that in Southeast Asia, but also beyond Southeast Asia to other Western markets. So I mean, I'm particularly excited about this iLEAP because in Visa we have some programs which actually are pushed to drive fintech, Indian fintechs at a world stage. One such program is Visa Ready. So basically, we take your solution, we certify it, we make it like Visa certified partner. You can literally take that seal of approval and partnership. It has a lot of weight to go to any of the 16,000 institutions we have, financial institutions that we partner with globally. So we have seen that happen a lot in transit globally. I think a lot of fintechs actually in the transit space, they take a Visa partnership and actually then go about going to different transit authorities worldwide. And that's one example, but that's one area for fintechs to look at, large corporates like us, that how could we help you leverage the scale we have, and how can you help us give access to innovation, new ideas and thinking that you are really good at.
Excellent, Arvind. And I think you mentioned so many very important points in this very brief few minutes that you spent. And one is the diversity factor that is there in India. So we are, as they say, 1 billion people with 1 million challenges. And those 1 million challenges occur because of the diversity that is there. But they also become 1 million opportunities for us to address. And so that is very important. The second part that you mentioned is how it is important for the startups to leverage the corporate to leap forward. The incubator, actually, from my point of view, the incubator is the place where you learn, where you get all the necessary knowledge, the resources, the capabilities to be able to leap into your next level. And that next level should be a level which is self-sustainable and from which you are able to grow. And that is what this partnership can enable. In Atal Innovation Mission, we actually have, for the tinkering labs, we have a number of corporates who adopt tinkering labs. And the adoption is not financial implication. There's no financial implication in an adoption. The adoption is from the point of view of how can you help them, nurture them to their full creative potential and be able to express that potential. And so it could be in the form of mentoring, it could be in the form of market or domain knowledge that the startup is lacking, and so on. So I do hope, all of you who are here, we are able to develop a mechanism with the help of Startup Réseau for you to be able to adopt, let us say, fintech startups from the ecosystem, or adopt deep tech startups from the ecosystem. And then there would be no financial implication. But of course, if you choose to, and if you feel it is worthy, then you could always do that. But I think this adoption concept can help the startups leap from where they are to the next level. So great points. Thank you so much, Arvind, for sharing that. Ajay, over to you.
Sure. I'll go with my next question to Sanjay. And Sanjay, you have been around for almost like a decade, investing in startups, first in your personal capacity, as first being an entrepreneur yourself, a tech entrepreneur, then investing in your personal capacity, looking at startups across the country, and now with 100x. My question is, what do you think can be done to improve the funnel of startups that actually in academic institutions to make them investment ready, particularly looking at the early stage of companies?
That's a very good question, Ajay. And I always had this challenge in terms of when I go to incubators, physically pre-pandemic or now, when you hear those pitches, most of the startup founders have got great ideas, but they need lots of nurturing, right? And these ideas are very fragile because they are at early stage, getting incubated. So lots of nurturing is required, and I think that's where this program like iLEAP will be very useful, so that they become investment ready. And the reason why I'm telling investment ready is, when you look at a startup, let's understand basic idea. They love their product, right? They are in love with what they are building across. But investors typically fund business, not products. So how do you convert product into business is going to be very important, and then that's where programs like iLEAP can make a lot of difference. Just to give you an example, typically a startup founder will come down and pitch saying that I built a 128-bit encryption. I mean, for me as an investor, it does not have any value. So you ask, so what? Then it will say saying that it's an unbreakable security. Then you again ask, so what? And says that, you put in credit card, and it's difficult to hack across or impossible to hack. And that's where you realize now the product or IP is now converted into business. So I think a lot of this guidance or mentoring and close nurturing would be required across. And I think Startup Reso, iLEAP, can do wonders, helping these founders get direction and avoid those costly mistakes, right? And mind well, everybody, ideas are nobody monopoly, right? So everybody's working on some or other idea. So more nurturing, more mentoring. And at 100x VC, we have got a thesis which is called unlimited mentoring, right? So that's what I would recommend across, for this program, where you can closely work with startup founders, help them convert their product into business, and investors will definitely fund those business.
Thank you so much, Sanjay bhai. I'll pass it over back to Mr. Ramanan.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajay. And I think taking cue from what Sanjay said, Avnish, he mentioned the importance of mentoring to the startups. And I think organizations like yours can play a very important role in mentoring, because you have so many experts, you have so many qualified people. Of course, they may not be familiar with the startup world, but they are familiar with the domain and they are familiar with technology. So I would like you to share, where do you think an organization like yours and many other corporates, how they can play a very important role in mentoring? Because, this, we all have suffered because of, I would say, a little lack of mentoring. And the concept of mentoring has not been so firm, though we have always had the Gurukul concept in India. And the guru has always been the person who has been coaching, irrespective of their age. That person leads the person on to the realization of their full potential. Now, incubators play a very important role in that. And you rightly distinguished when you spoke earlier, you said there is early stage startups and then you have the growth startups. And to arrive at the growth startup stage, you have to go through this early stage startup. And there you start only with the innovation idea that Sanjay said. They don't really still have they may have a product, but they are not yet thought about the business plan and they don't know what the applicability of that product is in the market. And so to course from the point where they are with a great innovation and a prototype of an innovation to a point where somebody thinks they can become investable requires mentoring from an organization like yours. What do you feel that corporates can do to be able to help them bridge this gap? Because this is such a vital gap. A great idea can just go by the wayside if you don't nurture it and cultivate it to its full capability.
Yeah, no, absolutely right, Mr. Ramanan. So, I'll just like to share maybe a couple of points. So we work with a lot of incubators, and again, some of those incubators are aligned to our growth stage thesis. For example, for deep tech, we work closely with IIT Madras. For agri-tech, we work with IIT Kanpur. For fintech, we work with IIT Mumbai. And so on, right? And for sustainability, we work with IIM Ahmedabad and CIIE. But we also work with JECRC, for example. And I know, Mr. Ramanan, you have been involved with them in Rajasthan as well. So that's a good example of where I'm personally mentoring the startups there and the incubation cell there, the e-cell right from the beginning. And as you would appreciate, over 1.5 years, the program has come up significantly in terms of what they are doing. So you are absolutely right that they can benefit a lot with mentoring, and I have been personally doing that for our incubator like JECRC. But in addition to that, we do a lot of other mentoring. For example, we have a program in Accenture called Unnati. And in Unnati, our women managing directors are actually mentoring early stage. This is the kind of startups you are talking about, early stage women founders, right? Who are actually working in deep tech and enterprise SaaS. So while we don't leave our focus area of deep tech and enterprise SaaS, we mentor a lot of early stage, entrepreneurs, whether they are in the incubation or whether they have just come out of it, like I'm talking about. And we do that mentoring to make sure that they are able to get their product market fit very fast, right? Because Accenture, with huge amount of access to use cases and what the real industry requirement is, we are able to do that very quickly. Now, I think that's one thing which, if I have worked with other, incubators outside as well, Mr. Ramanan, in Zurich, with ETF Zurich and Tel Aviv University. One thing, and Stanford as well, one thing which they do very well is that they have this something called the technology transfer desk, or the technology, and that particular organization, which is sitting between the corporate or the industry and the e-cell, plays a vital role in terms of doing this, what you are talking about, right? Accenture can do it, but this particular technology transfer desk is able to, one, understand what is the requirement of the industry and make sure that the research and the invention and innovation which is happening in the e-cell is aligned to that, right? A lot of incubators still are doing a copycat kind of innovation or something like which is part of the herd mentality, which they don't need to, right? They need to focus on what they can do. Again, a lot of them spread their resources very thin, and everybody is doing everything. Now, if you have a body like this, which is sitting in between, which is one looking into identifying the best ideas and connecting them to the mentors in the industry, that would make a significant difference. I know some of our IITs have that, but I think that's a model which can be further improved and also taken to the smaller incubators as well, where we have that kind of a entity. So there is a lot which can be done from a mentoring perspective. Accenture is doing that, and hopefully the incubator model as we go ahead could will further evolve as well. I think there's a lot of scope, for example, to collaborate between the incubators, Mr. Ramanan, right? So a lot of them otherwise keep on reinventing the wheel, but there's a lot of knowledge which can be shared between them. They can give access to capabilities and resources to each other. So those kind of things are there, while the corporates and people like me are going to doing our job, but there is a lot which the incubators can do to help themselves as well.
Indeed, Avnish, and actually, a lot of what you said are activities that are already in progress, and we realized that right at the beginning. For instance, the Atal Innovation Mission incubators, most of them focus on a particular area. So you have either agri-tech as a focus, or fintech as a focus, or manufacturing as a focus, and so on. We encourage our incubators to have specific focus areas. Of course, they are free to have startups related to other areas too, which may be having a relation. But it is important to build that core competency, expertise, and relationships, which is going to reinforce the startup's growth. So that is one part. The second, which you said, is music to all the women-led startups in our mess. We have 575 women-led startups, and I think I would like to have a separate discussion with you on how the managing director group that you have, which is focusing on early stage women-led startups, can be able to help these 575 women-led startups, and this number continues to grow. And the third
Actually, I'd like to add that next month, and I know maybe I should not be telling now, but next month we are also launching a fund. And this fund will actually give grants to early stage women entrepreneurs, again in deep tech and enterprises. So it's not just mentoring, we will actually give them money which goes and hits their bank directly.
Wonderful. I think this is even sweeter music to their ears. So, and the third point that you mentioned, which is very important, is the mentoring network, with which, people, they should not work in silos, but should be able to share resources. And one of the things that we have done to take, to implement this concept is we actually have about 102 mentors associated with all our Atal tinkering, our Atal incubators, so that they are financial experts or legal experts or IP experts, and they are shareable to all the incubators on a shareable basis, so that they can leverage their competency and capability and so on. And we launched this Mentors of Change movement in Atal Innovation Mission, and I have to tell you, such a fantastic response of more than 10,000 registrations to volunteer as mentors, and they are all industry experts, or they are working in the industry, or they are in the research, or they're in
I am a mentor of change as well, sir.
Yes, absolutely. And so this has been, I would say, one of the most value-adding parts of Atal Innovation Mission's initiatives, because it helps all the young budding innovators to really come up. So thank you so much for that. I pass it on to Ajay.
Thank you, Avnish, and thank you, Mr. Ramanan. So I'll come with the last structured question of this panel, and I'll go to Arvind with this. It's a double-barreled question, and I couldn't kind of memorize all of it, so I just noted it down. So because your role spans across India and South Asia, I'm sure that you would be looking at startups from a broader region rather than just the country. So how and what do you think about India and its quality of startups, with the startups and the ecosystem that Visa has worked with in the broader region? That is part one. And the second one is, how can organizations like Visa and other similar corporations follow programs like iLEAP and find better ways to engage with startups and find synergies for creating or co-creating solutions for the country?
Just to get the second part right, Ajay, so partnering with what organizations?
Programs like iLEAP, if organizations like Visa and programs like iLEAP kind of join hands, or Visa and its leadership kind of lends itself, how can better solutions get created for the country, and better value be generated for both entrepreneurs and the enterprise?
Yeah. First question, clearly, when we look at India fintechs, they're mature so much that we actually take them to South Asia. So we've taken a lot of these fintechs out of India, specifically in the processing space, where payment processing space, risk management, where of course they've built much more sophisticated machine learning algorithms to do predictive risk scoring and whatnot. That kind of product set is a way in the leading and cutting edge than what some of the startup ecosystem is in Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, right? So in other South Asian countries. So it's clearly, from that vantage point, partnerships that we have with Indian fintechs become a launchpad for expanding them to the other markets, but not just in South Asia. Actually, even Southeast Asia is a huge opportunity to we are in the midst of taking a product that we designed for India with a local fintech in Bangalore. We are now taking that product to Indonesia. It's a product for e-commerce transactions. And so it found a product market fit in Indonesia. So we're taking it. So this fintech will actually expand, and they'll incorporate themselves in Indonesia and actually expand there, and so on and so forth. So that's one example. The second part of your question of how do we think of programs like iLEAP, as I mentioned earlier, right? Like I think this is a great platform for startups to leverage, and I think for us to partner with them open-heartedly and mentor them and actually give them the stage, a world stage. And the way we do it is a program called Visa Ready. And we have a bunch of programs, like they can use a developer platform, and you use our utilities we have created, like Fintech Fast Track. So they have all these program packages, but the flagship is this program called Visa Ready, which allows you to certify your product and solutions, and then put a Visa seal on it and actually go abroad to any of the markets. And actually, that's the thing. Way to understand Visa is a platform, right? So we allow other companies to build products on top of us. The beauty of the platform we have is it has network effects. It has consumers on one side, like we've got 4 billion customers on one side, credentials on one side, we call it. And then we have around 16,000 financial institutions. And then we have like 60 million merchant acceptance points. So these are merchants who accept Visa card, for example, worldwide, right? So with that network, if you have a great technology, you don't have to worry to create those network effects. We have that. You just have to find a way in which you can bolt onto our platform, and we will extend the distribution, we'll extend the reach. And I think Sanjay mentioned it earlier. The trick is to have the right business model that you can actually think through. How can I take my product and have a product market fit? Because while we are, see us as a platform and a matchmaker, like we can take a fintech, give them access to banks who are looking for similar products. But as part of the matchmaker, I mean, we have to make the value proposition work from both sides. And I think that's a bit of a work that I think early stage fintechs, fintech founders actually have a learning curve. And that's where a lot of mentorship that comes in, that Avnish is talking about, because if they are mentored properly, then they can take a lot of advantage on a lot of platforms that already exist. So we are definitely excited about Indian fintech ecosystem, and I think it has miles to go.
Great. I think, yeah, Ajay, you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, I think I was on mute. So I was just wanting to add that I think fairly recently, I think Visa Foundation also extended support via grants to 3 women entrepreneurs in India. So I mean, beyond Visa, I think the Visa Foundation also plays its role in enabling the broader entrepreneurship ecosystem and supporting the cause of gender diversity and enabling women entrepreneurs as well. So that also is a big.
Yeah, thanks for the call out, Ajay. I think that's sir, you were mentioning about the women entrepreneurs in your program. So more than happy to get engaged on that. To Ajay's point, globally we had a $200 million grant for small businesses, and in India we partnered with iFund for Women, and there's a grant where small business women entrepreneurs actually had access to this capital, and then eventually, hopefully, it goes to serve them and whatnot. So yeah, very excited about similar opportunities if it's on your platform.
Excellent. Our aspiration is that 50% of our entrepreneurs and startups should be women-led startups. That's the target, or that's the goal, aspirational goal. And I think our incubators are also working very hard to ensure that we find the right talent and enable the right opportunities for all women entrepreneurs and women-led startups. And I'm sure we will reach there. We are at a good stage in terms of the growth of those women-led startups. But I think it is also very important to have programs like yours, which you're running in Accenture and Visa and otherwise in Startup Réseau, to be able to encourage that movement and enable them to avail of these. So with that, I think we are running short of time. This has been a very, very engrossing and enlightening discussion with all of you. And I really want to thank you so much for spending your valuable time and sharing, more importantly, very valuable insights, which would be greatly useful to our startup community and to our incubator community. So before I wrap up, any concluding messages from all of you, starting with Sanjay and Avnish and Ronta? Sanjay,
Thank you very much. And I think I look forward from 100x.vc to partner on this program with all the incubators and, iLEAP in terms of giving us deal sourcing and good deal flow, as it is Ajay has been kind enough to always pass on the good deals to us. So look forward for more engagement, Ajay.
Excellent. We hope your next 100 startups come from the Atal Innovation Mission ecosystem, of course, validated and curated by Startup Réseau and the team that looks at that. So
Sure.
thank you so much, Sanjay, and thank you so much for participating. Avnish?
Thank you, sir. So I just like to say that I think it's very important, and everybody understands the role of the ecosystem, right? And that's what we are talking about here today as well. All these different entities, whether it's the startups, it's early stage investors, VCs, academia, government, all of them need to come together to actually take the Indian startup ecosystem to the next level, right? We have a lot of pride when we say that we are already the third largest startup ecosystem in the world and probably the fastest growing as well. But I think we all know that there's a lot to cover as well, right? And then we would like to, especially from a deep tech perspective, at least, or from a women entrepreneurship perspective, there is a lot more which we can do, and all this requires the ecosystem to work in harmony. So I think that is what this initiative is trying to do, and I, from an Accenture point of view, will totally support it. Look forward to working with all of you.
Absolutely, Avnish, and you hit the nail on the head when you said that collaboration is the key word, and we need all the stakeholders to participate in this. And I think the COVID-19 crisis has indeed been a watershed moment for India, in that it has woken the startups, the power of the startups, and the need for startups, and the need for innovation to the corporate world too. And it has been a tremendous response from the startup world in terms of being able to address the crisis from preventive, assistive, or even curative solutions. I think we can all be very proud that India has not only manufactured the vaccine, but is exporting it. And not just exporting it, giving it free to all the other countries that need it. I mean, how proud can you be of such an accomplishment? And also the fact that we have the potential now to create solutions which are going to address a post-COVID-19 world. And in the process, the going vocal for local and then thereby going global is enabled and engineered with the help of partners like you. So thank you so much for being part of this ecosystem and helping us in the ecosystem. Arvind?
So first of all, thank you for the opportunity, and really excited about this iLEAP program you're launching. From a visa standpoint, we enable ecosystems, and I think India is really at a cusp where we have India Stack. From the payments perspective, we have India Stack. We are launching open banking, open account aggregator, credit enablement network. I think one of the ways for the industry to come together is to build these ecosystems, and I think there's a role that a company like Visa can play, and I think we continue to play, where we can bring some of the global best practices and what's happening with some of the innovation that already exists, so that we are not reinventing the wheel, but actually take that forward to another level. So I think those are some of the ways, like whether it's technologies like contactless and tokenization and e-commerce, something which has actually turned up pretty well in digital during COVID times. I think just a constant encouragement that the industry comes together to build the ecosystem that fintech desperately needs to be successful is going to be very important.
Thank you, Arvind. And indeed, you're so very right in that there is a tremendous opportunity for startups to leverage the corporate world. The fintech world is one of the fastest growing areas in India. And the need, I mean, when you look at our population, 1.3 billion people, and you have 300 million in the middle class economy, but we are going to have another 300 million to be added. And we would still not have covered the population. So that's the sort of potential that we have. And therefore, the ability of fintech startups to be able to leverage organizations like Visa and be able to grow is a tremendous possibility. And thank you so much for your offer, your partnership, as well as your insights today. And Ajay, your final word on all of this.
Sure. Firstly, thank you so much to the Atal Innovation Mission team for getting us on board as a partner to co-create this initiative and drive it through. And of course, bringing in our extended network of whether it is large corporates or investors and so on and so forth, because I think there's truly a massive opportunity when we talk of market access, we keep talking about taking companies from India to the US or to Israel or wherever. But having worked with ecosystems, whether in Chandigarh, for example, as a city, or a Jaipur or a Kochi, there are a lot of companies there who are building exactly similar products or good products like you'd find an entrepreneur building in a Bangalore or a Mumbai or a Delhi. But the unfortunate part is that they do not have access. And because they don't have access, probably their aspirations are also like, if my neighbor is making a couple of lakhs a year, I'm happy making 2 lakhs. But someone else building a similar product could be making 2 crores a month. How do you show him or her the opportunity that they're missing out on? So I think creating access to markets within the country itself, I think for a lot of these entrepreneurs in tier 2 and tier 3 cities is a huge opportunity. And I think that is what something that we would want to kind of focus on and help many more entrepreneurs kind of get access to these kind of avenues and scale up faster. So really looking forward to these next several quarters that we'll be working closely with the Atal Innovation Mission team and working with 1,906 startups is not a small number by any stretch of the imagination, but getting to kind of pick out the good ones, because once you start picking out the good ones and working with them, the rest of them they get onto the treadmill and they get inspired and they're like, hey, if someone who's my peer gets this opportunity, I should also be getting this opportunity. So they'll work harder for it, and that will only create a larger success story. So looking forward to that.
Thank you, Ajay. And indeed, we value this partnership with Startup Réseau. We also value the fact that you have been able to look at this from a very broad perspective of seeing how not only to recognize great world-class startups, but also how to encourage the others in that particular journey, because that's very important. And I hope everyone who are here, who have been attending this call, realize that, we have always been talking, we want world-class incubator with world-class startups. But world-class startups and world-class incubators happen when you rub shoulders with world-class organizations. And we have had 2 world-class organizations today on this panel, whether it is Visa, Accenture, or Sanjay Mehta, who is who is identifying world-class startups so that he can invest. So we are talking about people who are knowing what it takes to become world-class. And that is the biggest value add that I can see that we are trying to enable through these partnerships and through the ecosystem. And I think it is a great opportunity for all the startups in our ecosystem, whether they are from our incubators or from our community innovation centers, or whether they are from our winners in Atal New India challenges and so on, and also the mentors who are associated with all these startups. This is your opportunity to be able to, as Arvind rightly said, how do you get global best practices and ensure that they become an integral part of your arsenal and your implementation style and your ability to pursue the global markets? That is where you have this great opportunity to leverage and to build upon. And as Newton himself said, we build on the shoulders of giants, right? Whatever he said, whatever I have discussed is because I have stood on the shoulders of giants. And that is what we as startups are now standing on the shoulders of the giants like Visa and Accenture and other partners that we have. We want to be able to stand on their shoulders and be able to leap across to the next level. And that's how the iLEAP, I hope, actually happens for everyone. Thank you so much, all the panelists, for participating in this wonderful discussion. It would be remiss of me if I were not to thank my team, Atal Innovation Mission team, Ishita, Manglesh, Pramit, Deepali, the program directors, and all the other team members who have made all these things happen. Finally, I just get to speak on their behalf, but they are the people who are actually doing all the work behind the scenes. So thank you so much. And once again, it has been a pleasure and a privilege to host this particular session and mark the beginning of a wonderful relationship with Startup Réseau. All the very best. This is Ramanan, Mission Director, Atal Innovation Mission, and I hope every one of you has a great evening and be safe. Thank you.